Today, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit more about what this entire concept of a safety net is when it comes to a portion of wealth management in one's portfolio.
See, safety net it can have different connotations for different people in different stages of life. When you are trying to accumulate money in your life in the early phase, I would say safety net is creating a clear laid out insurance plan which can cover your life, cover your health and any disability. That's safety net for a person who's starting out. But today let's focus on people who have crossed 50 years, 45, 50 years of age or even more and created a corpus for themselves, and they are in responsible positions, which means that there could be a potential liability on their wealth in case of any eventuality of litigation. So safety net is, I think, the most important part of wealth management. Depending on the context of that individual, safety net could have different connotations. But for a person who has already accumulated a reasonable amount of wealth, it becomes very important to not just grow the money, also make it liability free, or at least attempt to make it liability free. Like, for example, a PPF is not attachable. So even if there is a liability, financial liability on me because of a personal loan I have taken, or I have given personal guarantees for my business, or I am a CEO of a company and there is some liability, if I'm a chairman of a housing society and there is a liability because of somebody's death due to negligence, all these varied examples create liabilities, potential liabilities, making sure that there's some money kept aside for the rainy day. Like a PPF which is not attachable. There are other methods to do it. So that's called the safety net.
Feroze, tell me a little bit more about what role technically trusts play, and also what is a private trust and what exactly is something like a discretionary trust, and how do these dynamics sort of interplay when one is trying to create this whole concept of a safety net?
See, the trust is basically from a bona fide intent perspective. If you're trying to ward off a malified intent action, then it does not hold merit. Having said which, a trust is nothing but a separate vehicle and separate investment vehicle, which a person, in my opinion, should always create, like I have for myself. It's a separate vehicle. The trust is created under the 1964 Trust Act. It's a very simple trust. If I have to give you my own example, it's a 7-8 page small document which is the genesis or the birth of a separate financial family member, not a physical family member but a financial family member. Then you have a separate bank account, separate debit card, separate checkbook, and then you are demarking your investments from your other expenses, other transactions. So that's creating a separate investment account. The trust which you so create needs to have 3-4 points in mind. One is it needs to be very simple because you can create the most complex trust to hold businesses, or you can create a simple family trust. The second point is you have to be the managing trustee yourself and not employ a corporate, because that's for complex trusts you need corporates. The third point is the trust should be irrevocable in nature, which means that the person who puts money in the trust cannot take back the money. That is where the safety net concept actually arises from. So the third point is it needs to be irrevocable, by which I mean if Feroze created a trust, funded 2 crores, 1 crore, whatever that amount be, he cannot use this money for himself. The money has to be for the benefit of his family in my case. So that's point 3. Point 4, it should be discretionary trust, that it's my decision to distribute this money as per my wishes to the constituents. If you kept these 3-4 things in mind, that's the constitution of the trust, which will help you achieve the objective which we laid out in the first part of the conversation.
Sure. Feroze, just a quick question, and this is something I've seen investors be a little confused about. Is there some kind of a minimum amount of funds that one should really have when one is looking at creating these safety nets or creating trusts? I mean, is there sort of like a minimum amount that, onwards that one looks at when it comes to these kind of entities?
I think, Fatima, it's a very, very good question. Most of us think that this vehicle is for the biggest of the biggest people. It's actually not true. The cost of creating a trust is negligible. At least at Anand Rathi, we create them for free for our clients, of course, for a client, not for a non-client, because it's a very simple pay document. If I have to create something complex, then it can attract fees of almost 3, 4, 5 lakh rupees to create a trust. If you're going to pay that kind of fee, then automatically you're going to be funding it because you're not going to spend 3, 4 lakhs and not use that trust. But I think anybody who charges a fee for a trust, just because he's charging a fee, makes the trust more complex, because you can't charge fees for a small simple document. So point one, it is not for the people who are 10 crore, 5 crore, 20 crore. It is also relevant for a person who's at the age of 35, has a 20 lakh rupee corpus accumulated so far, but he has 30 more years to live, and 30, 40 more years to live and create wealth. So point one, there's no minimum amount. You can fund the trust with as little as 20,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, and creation of the trust ideally should not have a fee, not because you should not be paying a fee. Anytime I have seen trust created by massive big lawyers, the trusts have become more complex because there is a fee associated to it. So these are the 2 points when it comes to creation of a trust, and the cost implication and the minimum funding required is nil. So you can keep a trust unfunded for the next 50 years, doesn't matter.